Ladies and gentlemen, let's imagine this for a moment. You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep, but because your mind never truly rested. You feel drained, not because you work too hard, but because someone in your life keeps pulling from you emotionally. You feel smaller, not because you lack talent, but because someone keeps planting seeds of doubt in your confidence. Now let me ask you something serious. What if the biggest obstacle in your life right now isn't your finances, your education, or your opportunities, but the relationships you continue to tolerate? Stay with me, because this may be one of the most important conversations you ever hear. Most people don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because their energy is constantly under attack. And energy, your emotional strength, your mental clarity, your focus is the fuel of success. Without it, even the most talented person struggles. With it, ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. But here's what we rarely talk about. Not every relationship in your life is designed to help you grow. Some relationships shrink you, some exhaust you, some confuse you. And the most dangerous part, toxicity doesn't always come with warning signs. It can look like love. It can sound like concern. It can hide behind familiarity. It might be the friend who laughs at your dreams, the partner who controls more than they support, the colleague who competes instead of collaborates, the family member who constantly reminds you of your past mistakes. Little by little, your confidence weakens, your motivation drops, your ambition softens, and you begin to believe that exhaustion is normal. But it's not. If you truly want to rise, if you truly want to thrive, you must learn one powerful skill: protecting your energy. Today, we are not just talking about breaking toxic relationships. We are talking about reclaiming your peace. We are talking about setting standards. We are talking about choosing growth over guilt, clarity over chaos, and strength over emotional survival. Because once you understand how valuable your energy is, you will never again allow someone to waste it. Let's begin with something most people never calculate: the true cost of a toxic relationship. You see, when people think about cost, they think about money, but the most expensive things in life are rarely financial. The most expensive things cost you focus. They cost you confidence. They cost you clarity. They cost you years you can never get back. A toxic relationship rarely announces itself loudly. It doesn't walk into your life and declare, "I am here to destroy your peace." No, it's far more subtle than that. It begins with small criticisms disguised as jokes, small doubts disguised as concern, small manipulations disguised as love, and over time, those small things become heavy things. The first hidden cost is mental distraction. When your mind is constantly replaying arguments, decoding mixed signals, or preparing for the next emotional conflict, you lose your creative power. You lose your sharpness. Your energy, instead of building your future, is spent managing chaos. You may be physically present at work, but mentally exhausted. You may be sitting in opportunity, but emotionally distracted. That distraction has a price. The second cost is self-doubt. Toxic environments slowly reprogram how you see yourself. If someone repeatedly questions your abilities, mocks your dreams, or minimizes your progress, you begin to internalize it. You start shrinking your goals. You lower your expectations. You hesitate before taking bold action, and hesitation is expensive. Success often belongs to those who move with clarity and confidence, but toxicity clouds clarity. It makes you second-guess decisions you once made boldly. The third cost is emotional depletion. Every relationship requires energy, but healthy relationships replenish what they take. Toxic relationships only withdraw. They take patience, they take peace, they take enthusiasm, and they rarely deposit encouragement, support, or stability in return. When you are constantly emotionally drained, even simple tasks feel overwhelming. Your productivity drops, your motivation fades, your discipline weakens. And you wonder why you're not progressing, when the real answer is you are exhausted from surviving instead of thriving. The fourth hidden cost is lost opportunities. Think about how many chances people miss because they are entangled in drama. Instead of networking, they're arguing. Instead of learning, they're worrying. Instead of building, they're defending themselves emotionally. Energy spent on conflict is energy stolen from growth. And here's the most dangerous cost of all normalized dysfunction. When toxicity lasts long enough, it begins to feel normal. You adjust to disrespect, you excuse manipulation, you tolerate instability, and what once shocked you now feels ordinary. That's when growth becomes almost impossible, because you no longer recognize what healthy looks like. Understand this clearly. You cannot build a peaceful life while constantly fighting emotional battles. You cannot think clearly while constantly defending yourself. You cannot grow confidently while someone consistently pulls you backward. Every day you stay in an unhealthy environment, you are paying a price whether you see the invoice or not. The hidden cost of toxic relationships isn't just pain, it's potential. And your potential is far too valuable to be drained by someone who cannot contribute to your growth. Before you can thrive, you must first recognize what is costing you more than it's giving you. Because awareness is the first step toward freedom. Let me tell you something powerful. You do not build a great life with time alone. You build it with energy. Time is available to everyone. Energy is not. Two people can wake up with the same 24 hours. One creates progress, momentum, and opportunity. The other barely survives the day. The difference is not intelligence. It is not background. It is not luck. It is energy. Energy is your emotional strength. Energy is your mental clarity. Energy is your ability to focus without distraction. Energy is your willingness to take bold action. Without energy, even the simplest task feels heavy. With energy, even the hardest challenge feels possible. Now here is where most people make a critical mistake. They protect their money, but they do not protect their energy. They will argue for hours. They will tolerate drama for years. They will explain themselves repeatedly to people committed to misunderstanding them. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted. Your energy is like fuel. Every goal you want to achieve requires it. Every dream you want to pursue demands it. Every relationship you want to nurture consumes it. The question is simply, where is your fuel going? Healthy relationships multiply your energy. They encourage you. They calm you. They support your growth. After spending time with them, you feel stronger, clearer, and more confident. Toxic relationships do the opposite. They create tension. They create insecurity. They create emotional turbulence. After interacting with them, you feel drained, irritated, and distracted. That drain is not small. When your energy is low, your patience decreases. Your discipline weakens. Your decisions become reactive instead of strategic. Your goals begin to feel unrealistic. Energy affects everything. Have you ever noticed how confident you feel when your mind is peaceful? How productive you become when you are emotionally stable? That is not coincidence. That is energy working in your favor. Now imagine trying to succeed while constantly defending yourself, explaining your worth, or managing someone else's negativity. It is like trying to drive forward with the brakes partially engaged. You might move, but slowly, painfully, inefficiently. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It is responsible. If you allow constant negativity into your life, you are sabotaging your own future. Not because you lack potential, but because you are leaking power. The disciplined person understands something crucial. You cannot give your best to the world if you are emotionally depleted. You cannot build confidence in an environment that continuously attacks it. You cannot rise in a space that resents your growth. Protecting your energy means setting limits. It means reducing unnecessary arguments. It means refusing to engage in drama. It means choosing peace over proving a point. Sometimes the strongest move is silence. Sometimes the smartest decision is distance. Sometimes the healthiest choice is saying, "This costs me too much." Remember this clearly. Your energy determines your impact. If you guard it carefully, you will think better, act better, decide better, and live better. If you waste it carelessly, even small problems will feel enormous. Energy is not just how you feel. Energy is your ability to build the life you want. And once you realize that, you will start protecting it like your future depends on it. Because it does. One of the greatest advantages you can develop in life is the ability to recognize problems early. Because when you catch something early, it is manageable. When you ignore it, it becomes costly. Toxic relationships rarely begin with obvious damage. They begin with subtle discomfort. A comment that doesn't sit right, a pattern that feels off, a tone that slowly chips away at your confidence. But most people dismiss early warning signs. They say, maybe I'm overthinking. They say, it's not that serious. They say, they didn't mean it. And while they are busy justifying behavior, the pattern strengthens. The first sign to recognize is consistent disrespect disguised as humor. When someone repeatedly makes jokes at your expense, minimizes your achievements, or uses sarcasm to undermine you, pay attention. Humor should uplift, not humiliate. The second sign is emotional inconsistency. Healthy relationships provide stability. Toxic ones create confusion. One day they praise you, the next day they criticize you, one moment they support you, the next moment they withdraw. That instability keeps you anxious. It keeps you guessing. And when you are constantly guessing, you are not growing, you are surviving. The third sign is control masked as care. They say, I know what's best for you. They say, I just don't want you to fail. But gradually your decisions shrink, your independence fades, your voice softens. Real care empowers, control restricts. Another powerful red flag is competition instead of collaboration. In healthy relationships, people celebrate your wins. In toxic ones, they feel threatened by them. They compare, they criticize, they subtly attempt to outshine you or diminish your progress. And here is an important truth. If someone is uncomfortable with your growth, they will eventually try to limit it. You must also watch for chronic negativity. Some people do not bring solutions. They bring complaints. They do not bring encouragement. They bring doubt. They do not bring vision. They bring fear. Spend enough time around negativity, and it becomes your internal dialogue. The danger is not just their words. The danger is what those words start to sound like in your own mind. Another early sign is how you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel lighter or heavier, clearer or confused, inspired or insecure? Your emotional state after interaction is data. Pay attention to it. Often your intuition recognizes toxicity before your logic does. But if you ignore that inner warning repeatedly, you teach yourself to tolerate discomfort. And tolerance of small disrespect leads to acceptance of larger disrespect. Here is the key principle. Patterns matter more than promises. Anyone can apologize. Anyone can promise change. Anyone can explain behavior, but repeated patterns reveal truth. The disciplined person does not wait for obvious damage. They observe subtle signals. They trust consistent behavior over emotional words. Recognizing the signs early does not mean reacting aggressively. It means becoming aware. It means gathering clarity. It means refusing to ignore repeated discomfort. Because the longer you ignore red flags, the more expensive they become. Awareness is protection. Clarity is power. And early recognition gives you options before emotional damage becomes deep. If you want to protect your energy, you must first train your eyes to see what drains it. And once you see clearly, you can choose wisely. Let us talk about something many people misunderstand: boundaries. Some believe boundaries push people away. Some believe boundaries are rude. Some believe boundaries create distance. But the truth is this: boundaries do not destroy healthy relationships. A boundary is not a wall built out of anger. It is a line drawn with clarity. It says, this is what I allow. It says, this is what I do not accept. It says, I respect myself enough to protect my peace. Now understand this carefully. If you do not define your limits, other people will define them for you. Without boundaries, people will borrow your time without consideration, speak to without respect, cross emotional lines without consequence. Not because they are always evil, but because human nature pushes as far as it is permitted. Boundaries are a form of discipline, and discipline creates freedom. When you set a boundary, you are not controlling others, you are controlling access to you. For example, if someone constantly criticizes your goals, a boundary may sound like, I prefer not to discuss my plans if they are going to be dismissed. If someone drains you with constant drama, a boundary may look like limiting how often you engage. If someone disrespects you publicly, a boundary may require stepping back entirely. Notice something important: boundaries are calm. They are not emotional explosions. They are not long arguments. They are clear decisions followed by consistent action. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection. They fear conflict. They fear being misunderstood. But here is the greater danger. When you avoid setting boundaries, you reject yourself. You teach people that your comfort is negotiable. You teach them that your time is flexible. You teach them that your feelings are optional. And slowly, resentment builds. Boundaries prevent resentment. Healthy people respect clear limits. Unhealthy people resist them. And that resistance is information. If someone becomes angry when you ask for respect, that tells you something. If someone mocks your need for space, that tells you something. If someone ignores your limits repeatedly, that tells you something. Boundaries act as filters. They separate those who value you from those who use you. Another important truth: boundaries must be consistent. You cannot allow disrespect one day and reject it the next. Inconsistency invites confusion. Clarity invites respect. The strongest boundaries are not spoken repeatedly. They are demonstrated through behavior. If you say you will not tolerate negativity and you continue to engage in it, your words lose power. But when your actions align with your standards, your presence gains authority. Remember this principle: you cannot control how others behave, but you can control what you accept, and what you accept sets the standard for your life. Boundaries protect your energy. They protect your focus. They protect your growth. Without them, you are constantly defending yourself. With them, you are calmly directing your life. You do not need to be harsh. You do not need to be dramatic. You simply need to be firm. Because when you respect your own limits, others learn to respect them too. And if they don't, your boundary will quietly remove them from the space where they no longer belong. That is not cruelty. That is self-leadership. One of the most difficult battles you will ever fight is not with another person, it is within yourself. Because when you begin to distance yourself from toxic relationships, something uncomfortable appears. Guilt. You start questioning yourself. Am I being too harsh? Am I overreacting? What if they need me? What will people think? And slowly, guilt tries to pull you back into an environment you already know is unhealthy. Here is a powerful truth: growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. When you raise your standards, not everyone will celebrate. When you create distance, not everyone will understand. When you choose peace over chaos, some people will call you selfish. But choosing growth is not selfish, it is responsible. You cannot evolve while constantly apologizing for protecting yourself. Many people stay in toxic relationships because they confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. They believe endurance is strength. They believe tolerating pain proves love. They believe walking away means failure. But there is a difference between commitment and captivity. Commitment builds both people. Captivity drains one for the comfort of the other. You must ask yourself a difficult question: is this relationship helping me become stronger or smaller? Growth requires alignment. It requires environments that challenge you positively, not destructively. It requires conversations that expand your thinking, not shrink your ambition. And sometimes in order to grow, you must release expectations, release unhealthy attachments, release the idea that you must carry everyone. You are not responsible for fixing people who refuse to fix themselves. Another source of guilt comes from history. We've been through so much. They were there for me once. History can be meaningful, but it cannot justify ongoing harm. Time invested does not guarantee future value. Growth means evaluating relationships based on who they are now, not who they used to be. It also means accepting that some people are assigned to a season, not a lifetime, and that is not failure, that is life. When you choose growth, you may feel temporary loneliness. You may experience silence where noise once existed. But within that silence, something powerful happens, clarity. You begin to rediscover your confidence. You begin to hear your own thoughts clearly. You begin to reconnect with your goals. And you realize something important. Peace is not empty. It is powerful. The guilt fades when results begin to show. You become more focused, more disciplined, more emotionally stable. You stop explaining yourself constantly. You stop defending your dreams. You stop negotiating your worth. Growth over guilt means understanding that your future deserves priority over someone else's comfort. It means accepting that not everyone can grow with you, and that is okay. You can wish them well without walking beside them. You can forgive without reattaching. You can care without compromising your standards. Because in the end, your responsibility is not to keep everyone comfortable. Your responsibility is to become your best self, and growth requires courage, especially when guilt tries to convince you to stay small. Choose growth, even when it feels difficult, especially when it feels necessary. Now we arrive at the most important part of this journey. Breaking a toxic relationship is not the victory. Thriving after it is. Anyone can walk away in anger. Anyone can leave in frustration. But transforming that separation into strength, that is leadership over your own life. When you finally remove yourself from an unhealthy environment, something unusual happens. At first, there is silence, no drama, no tension, no emotional tug-of-war. And for some, that silence feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, because chaos had become routine. But if you remain patient in that quiet space, you begin to notice something powerful. Your mind becomes clearer. Your breathing becomes calmer. Your decisions become stronger. You start sleeping better. You start thinking bigger. You start believing again. That is not coincidence. That is energy returning. When you are no longer defending your worth, you can develop it. When you are no longer managing someone else's instability, you can strengthen your own stability. When you are no longer distracted by emotional turbulence, you can focus on building your future. Thriving is not about revenge. It is not about showing someone what they lost. It is not about proving them wrong. It is about proving yourself right. Right to demand respect, right to protect your peace, right to pursue growth without apology. And here is something important. After a toxic relationship ends, you must resist one temptation. Do not carry the bitterness forward. Learn the lesson, but release the resentment, because resentment is just another chain. And you did not fight for freedom only to stay emotionally imprisoned. Instead, carry wisdom. You now recognize red flags sooner. You value boundaries more. You understand your emotional limits better. That awareness becomes your new standard. Thriving means rebuilding intentionally. Choose friendships that inspire discipline. Choose partnerships that encourage growth. Choose environments that celebrate progress. Be selective, not arrogant, selective. You work too hard to regain your peace, to gamble it carelessly. And most importantly, thrive internally. Use your reclaimed energy to invest in yourself. Develop new skills. Strengthen your health. Expand your knowledge. Deepen your confidence. Because when you grow stronger, you attract stronger. Remember this: the quality of your life will always reflect the quality of the relationships you allow. You cannot soar while holding on to weights. You cannot rise while tied to negativity. You cannot thrive while negotiating your value. But when you protect your energy, when you set your standards, when you choose growth over guilt, you step into a new level of living, not survival, not endurance, not emotional exhaustion, but strength, clarity, purpose. Breaking toxic relationships is not about losing people. It is about finding yourself. And once you find yourself disciplined, clear, and strong, you do not just recover, you rise, you build, you thrive, and that is where your best life begins.